Hey folks, this is Business Redefined, your weekly most comprehensive look at the world of business, finance and economics. We want to have a conversation around the banking sector and various offerings being put in the market, and who better else to have this conversation with than KCB Bank, biggest by asset base. We are led now in this conversation by Anastasia Mtai, MD, KCB Bank, Kenya to be precise. Karibu sana.
Asante sana, Julian.
Glad to have you here. Anastasia, it's been a while since now you took the reins at KCB Bank Kenya. Let me just start from there. How has it been?
I'd say it's been quite exciting and interesting, and more specifically when you come into leadership when the macros are challenging. Because remember, we came in immediately after COVID, and then we had a bit of turbulence within the macros. That was the neopolitical wars, the disruption of the supply chain, the high interest rate regimes. And so I say you are really tested when everything is not looking well. And so for us, it has been quite exciting and trying to make sure that you still stay focused to bring meaning to the lives of the Kenyans that we serve.
Wonderful. We've been having a conversation about sustainability, social impact, and specifically the public benefit organizations. Speak to us about why this conversation is important and precisely what you're doing about it.
Let me start by saying KCB Bank Kenya, we live, breathe, for the betterment of our people. That's why we pride ourselves in our purpose, for people, for better. And each and everything, Julian, that you need to be doing, you need to ask yourself, how is it impactful to the people that you serve? How is it sustainable for the next 100 plus years? Because the people put through KCB, for it to have been in existence for over 128 years, had foresight. So the thing that we kept on reflecting and asking ourselves, reflecting on what's happening globally and the challenges we have currently, what are some of those sectors, segments that we can be impactful for the near future? And allow me just speak about the first one, that is women in business. We are all aware that looking at the white-collared jobs, the market has shrunk. So for future, the kind of employments that will be there will come from MSMEs, business, be it agribusiness or trading business. And so we ask ourselves, if you go through the streets and look at majority of these businesses, who are running these businesses? Women. Then when you turn to the other side and ask, so who are the number of people, value of loans that the women have assessed? And you will note that it was a quite negligent proposition. And then you want to ask yourself, these businesses which have been run, you want these businesses tomorrow to be corporates. What are you doing to ensure that they are corporates of tomorrow and they are not among the history, the 85% businesses that collapse? And that's why we came in as KCB and we looked at both financial and non-financial solution. First of all, to strengthen the businesses that these women were running. And then second, to de-risk them so that they can actually assess credit. And then finally, to expose them within the county, across the country, and globally, so that they can have markets throughout the planets. And then another key element was digital.
Yeah.
Then how do they market themselves globally? And that's now when we came in and we said, look at both financial and non-financial solution, look at the entire ecosystem and ask how do we reinforce it, and then how do we scale it up for sustainability? So that's what drove us, because we are saying, if we continue doing things the way we are and having an aspiration that these are the corporates of tomorrow and not putting through any intervention to achieve that, then it will just be stories.
But Anastasia, when you talk about the segments you're now targeting, retail, small and medium-sized businesses, many bankers will tell you these are credit risk-laden businesses. How do you calibrate your risk appetite there?
Brilliant. And let me start by a story, first of all, that traditionally, banks have advanced credit based on landed securities. Now, we talked about women. Where I come from, and where majority of us come from, women don't own land. So if you are intentional in trying to ensure that they assess credit, then you must come up with solutions that will ensure that, first of all, the business, the cash flows of the business are defined, are assured, because remember, security is the last resource. and this business is a going concern. And that's why you come up with intervention of training, ability for the women in business to find out whether really this business is profitable, what do they need to do differently so that the markups, the margins are high. And then finally, take other securities which are not traditionally landed securities. But the most important thing is to de-risk through capacity building, through training, ensuring that they have markets, and then they are running their business in a profitable and profitable way so that they are assured cash flows. And then finally, don't insist on land as security because they don't have it. I can tell you, Julian, I own no land in this country. So you make it easy and you make it accessible for women to assess credit. Second, we normally carry out workshops, clinics, and online training. These workshops, clinics, and online training is to ensure that we have de-risked our businesses. Let's take, for example, somebody will come and tell you, I know my business is profitable. When you ask, so what was the cost of your stock? No idea. What was the selling price? No idea. What's the markup? No idea. So making them aware of what they need to be looking out for and ensure that the lowest that they can be able to trade is to ensure that you first of all have your capital back. And then second, many a times we say that as financiers, we know how businesses are run. Julian, I believe it's high time that people in the corporate just go to the trenches and get to understand. And that's why we have to go and listen to the voice of the client to understand actually how they make sure if they bought bread in the morning, by the third day they must have sold that bread, otherwise it goes bad. What do they do it? It is by our people understanding that they can be able to offer the support. And that's why we took through all our branch network staff to understand how these businesses are being run so that they can be able to offer the right support for these businesses and not just ask you when you come in, book of accounts. Yet, as a small business, you have no book of accounts. You don't even keep them. You don't keep book of accounts. They ask you, so you've been running this business for how long? What are the structures? How is this business profitable that they can be able to meet the cost? So you move from that high desktop evaluation to the reality on the ground and offer this support to understand so that you can structure the solutions well for these women in business and the respective business segment for us to be able to de-risk and ensure that there's a cash flow. And I'll challenge you. For the women in business, we put aside 250 billion Kenya shillings. Yes. Up to now, we've advanced 180 billion. What are the interest rates in the industry? Insane. NPL. But I can tell you, the NPL for this segment is less than by 5%.
Anastasia, you're touching a lot about the efforts you're putting towards hand-holding, especially for women-led businesses. Are you sector agnostic even as you look at the women-led businesses? Would you say that there are sectors which you don't touch because of the risk? There are those which you focus on more?
A very good question. We look at the client and we prioritize areas which are impactful. But in terms of are there areas that we don't touch 100%, I'll say no. These areas which the risks are high, we ask ourselves, how then do we mitigate these risks so that we are inclusive in our solutioning? So in terms of prioritizing the sectors, we prioritize agriculture because everybody do have agriculture and subsistence basis, level. So that one you will be able to get a plot and do the farming easily because there is reduced capital outlay for the customer. You must look at the customer as you think through this solutioning. So we prioritize agriculture, and so far we are in 42 counties having partnership solutions. And the most important thing that we've done with these partnership solutions, first of all, make the credit accessible and make it cost effective, the risk, and then next, make sure that there's a market for the produce so that when the whole location or the whole country does poultry, you don't find that there's no market. So we've partnered with contract institution, the likes of Kenchi, QNP, to make sure that there's the market when they produce. And then second, there are some areas, the northern part of the country, livestock. We've come in and asked ourselves, how do we assist livestock farmers by ensuring that they have water? Because for livestock, water is key. So we've sunk some boreholes. to make sure that they are able to have water. And then now we've gone into feedlots, so that at least by the time you're bringing your cow to the market, it's able to attract a higher price. You've been hearing us about Kimalel goat auction that we've been playing in it. That's one of the way of giving back to the communities because it's a higher return.
Speak to us about what you're doing around the youth demographic. You spoke earlier about the challenge of credit being collateralized in this market. Majority of the youth don't have that collateral. Their needs are very nuanced compared to what we have seen with other demographics. How are you addressing that?
Excellent. And there's one thing that we all know, youth have a lot of energy. But at the same time, if you don't channel that energy to something that they love, then you lose them. So youth right now, they are excited to do agriculture. They are excited to do online trading. But most of the things that they want to do must be digitally driven. Yeah. If you are not in the digital space with the youth, then you lose them out. Now let's go to trading. Most of the youth don't have the shops the way our parents do have shops to sell their produce and to sell their stocks. But you find everybody's on online selling, and they're able to supply you with that. So what we've done is we made sure that in terms of payment, we've enabled them to pay digitally, and then also a marketplace that you're coming up that you can come in and actually sell your wares and get so many people following you. And then also in trainings, we have really tried to structure our training to speak to their concern and their interests. Another area that we've also done is mechanization of agriculture. The youth will not do the farming that me and you, I know you are a Gen Z, myself used to go to the farm and dig the land. They want mechanized. So the most important thing is how do we structure an ecosystem that will ensure that when they want to plow the farm, there is a tractor at a cost effective. Second, when they want to sell, that they come together. There's one thing that we've seen with youth. They do things in groups. The one who is doing it here will tell their friend doing it in Eldoret, Kisumu, Mombasa, and they want to come together and do things. So we have now a platform which kind of pull them together, which is our Chama Soft platform that will be launching, so they can come onto the platform and share ideas, do things together, and make it more exciting. And then finally, try to make sure that they are in small groups, that they can be able to engage policymakers, decision makers to be heard. Our youth really want to speak up. And so we have provided a platform for them that as they do commercial business, they have a forum where they can talk to each other, speak to the decision makers in this industry, and feel that they are being heard and they are being included.
I see.
Thank you.
Anastasia, everyone in this market is talking about one challenge we are all facing, that cost of credit has been really elevated. Granted, now that it's coming down, but we'll be very curious to know how do you see this faring out, especially going into 2025, and what specific measures are you taking as a bank to be able to address the cost of credit burden in this market?
Thank you, Julian. And I knew that question was going to come before we wrap up. Let me start by saying, what informs the cost of credit? Availability of liquidity in the industry. As of now, if you look at what the people who had this liquidity were asking for their return, it went as high as 17%. Even if you look at where the treasury bills were, the T-bonds were, a high of 17%. What does that mean? That this liquidity that you are supposed to mobilize, people are asking for higher return. Yeah. And so you have to do an average cost of fund and other costs to arrive at an interest rate that you are charging for your loans. So what's happening right now in the industry is that KCB is one of the lowest when it comes to base rate. And please just do a market survey.
The CBK publishes actually.
Yes, we are the lowest with 15.6% as the base rate. The regulator approved for us the risk-based pricing. Risk-based pricing model does do average of cost of fund. So if you are using a 6 months average, Julian, what does that mean? It has to take you 5 months for that cost of fund to come down. In fact, when the interest rates were coming down, because they were at the peak in the month of October, the cost of fund was above 4.7, almost going to 5%. And then you now had all those costs. Now that the T-bills are coming down, it will take us a minimum period of 4 to 5 months before this benefit is passed. So when the cost of fund went high, in fact, KCB, our base rate, if we had adjusted based on risk-based pricing, our base rate could have been 16.5%. But because of the pain that the customers are going through, and we are seeing the industry and global markets that the interest rates are coming down, we did adjust. For 1 month, I'm sitting at a higher cost of fund, which I've not passed it over to my customers, and I'm saying I'm hanging on there because of what's happening globally. With the inflation having come down, with the our exchange rate having come down, with core inflation, there's something called core inflation, Julian, that people need to be tracking, having shown a downward trend. We are very optimistic looking to the future. And with liquidity in the industry increasing, then definitely the people who have cheap deposits will accept a relatively cheap price and not the high of 16%, so that they can assist us bring down the cost of fund. And then thereafter, we'll pass this benefit to our customers. But I want to assure you, KCB base rate is the lowest at 15.6 in the industry.
Final point, Anastasia, as you look out into 2025, what's your outlook like? What are some of the key things you're looking out for to shape the banking industry?
As I look out into 2025, I'll say globally and as a country, we've gone through the lowest moments. We are very bullish as we look at 2025. And you will ask me, why do you say that? Julian, the reason why everybody wakes up in the morning and go out to work is for them to eat. We thank God for the rains. We thank God for the production of maize, because when this price is lower, it brings down the interest rate. The second thing is when you look at the fuel pricing, because inflation is influenced so much by food inflation and energy inflation. You've seen it actually not going up. So that gives me that hope, optimistic mindset that when I look at 2025, good times are coming up. Another thing also globally, you've actually seen all the inflations have come down. We are not talking about it anymore. Most of the central banks are bringing down their rates. So what does that mean for us? That the interest rates will come down. If you look at the fleet of foreign direct investment, if you look at the remittances comparing this year with last year, there's been a growth of over 22%. So that means there will be cheap liquidity coming into the market. That one now can be plowed into areas of manufacturing, other areas that can stimulate the economic prosperity of the country. When you look at what's happening in terms of creating a conducive working environment for us to be able to do business, and the policies that the regulators are put in place. Let me speak about my regulator, Central Bank, has put in place. It is trying to ensure that digital solutions are scaled up so that we can be able to transact real-time online. When you look at opening the East Africa market for trading, the PAPs that they are going to be rolling out, that clearly tells you for trade it will be very easy. And most of the financial institutions, KCB included, coming to the forefront and solutioning in terms of trade solutions, clearly demonstrate that the economic growth is going to be positive. The GDP is going to be positive when all of us come to the table and work. Thank you.
Anastasia Kimitai has just mentioned PAPS randomly there. It is a Pan-African payment system. This bank, as sometimes forget we are not only the banking sector. It's been a delight. Thank you so much for your conversation this moment, focusing on a raft of issues in the banking sector and with her outlook for 2025. And she's quite bullish, so we should keep an eye on that and hold her to account when the year starts rolling out. Stay tuned to Business Redefined.